In today's episode of Unlimited, let's have the much needed conversation as we now are in 2024 and the world is always moving forwards. I don't know if you've noticed this, Leigh, but time doesn't ever go backwards. It only goes forwards.
Huh? What?
Yeah, did you realise that?
No. I don't know. I must have dodgy clocks then. Some of mine work backwards.
Unless you've been time travelling. I don't know.
Hey,
I think
never say never on that. You know me.
the world has always moved forwards. As long as I've been on the world anyway, which is 30 years and a few months, it's always moved forwards. And in today's episode, we want to discuss old business versus new business.
Very
and,
fitting.
Even the word business is getting my goat at the moment, because it's like, it's not business, it's life. It's just, how do humans live? The only reason business exists is so that we can kind of survive in the society that's been created.
Let's define the word business. What is business? It's
busyness.
It's busyness. Yeah, there's that. But let's Google this. I'm going to Google this right now.
Oh, this is some Joe Rogan stuff. This is some Joe Rogan shit right now.
Jamie, bring it up. All right. Business meaning: a person's regular occupation, profession, or trade. Experts who typically conduct their business over the internet. A commercial activity. Firms who want to do a business with Japan.
Hang on. Slow down. Did it say over the internet there?
It says expert. This is number one, by the way. A person's regular occupation, profession, or trade. Experts who typically conduct their business over the internet. So, we've got the noun, business. Plural noun, the business. Another plural noun, businesses. Noun, busyness. Plural noun, busynesses. So, that's what it is. It's the way I'm going to interpret that. It's what we get busy with to make our money, to live. Does it?
Yep.
What else is business?
Well, let's define what do we get. What do we get out of business? First of all, we get money, which is a made-up thing.
Yeah,
it's just made up. As is business, it's just made up. It's not like I always use this analogy, but it's not like it grows out of the ground. It's not natural. It's a made up thing. It's not like a body part or a limb. It's a made up thing. But there's another trend that I've noticed, and it's like the people who are best at business don't go back in time; they go forwards in time. And going back in time, if we were to go back in time with business, then we'd be strictly stuck to the brick and mortar style of business, or the reciprocal exchange of things, bartering. That's how business would have started. You do me a favour, I'll do you a favour. And I quite like that way of operating when it comes to business, is the bartering side of things. I quite like that because it's a value exchange of time and energy. But yeah, I don't think in the modern day world, the competitive pace that the world is moving at, to be operating at an old frame of mind when it comes to how things are moving forward isn't serving anybody. It's not serving anyone. So for me, what I've recognized over the years is this: the people who are forward thinking actually skip unnecessary steps. So people ask us all the time, why don't you have a business? Why don't you have a barbershop? Would you have a barbershop? Well, we've assessed that as an option without having a lengthy conversation about it, because we don't have to. And we realize that that's not for us. Now, it is for some people, and we've got clients that we help, and it is for them, but it's not for us. So we don't have to walk that path in order to learn that that's the lesson. We don't have to walk that path of having a business in order to, not even, actually, I'm going to bring that back slightly. we do have a business, but it's in a different context. And just because we don't fit into the mold, just because we don't fit into the barbering mold, doesn't mean that we don't understand business, because business is business. And we have been in the brick and mortar businesses. We've witnessed what they're all about, and we've assessed the risk, and we said, you know what? It's not worth it. Not worth the time, not worth the energy, not worth the effort for me. And you have agreed, and that's why we do business together, and we do it in the context that we do.
Well, that's what I was going to add to what you said there, is like, we do have a business. We have a great business. And that's where I go with that conversation as well. It's like, business is business. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a brick and mortar, boots on the streets shop, a chain of shops, an airline. Owning real estate is a business. Now, most people don't even think about that. Having a portfolio of investment real estate is a business, and accountants treat that like a business. So the best people to ask is an accountant, really, what's a business? And because it doesn't matter if it's brick and mortar, it just doesn't matter. But something that a lot of people ignore in that conversation is that there is also now a different way to make business, to do business, and that's online. We can't ignore that. Some of the biggest, and get this is wild, some of the biggest, most profitable companies and businesses in the world are online. They're not brick and mortar businesses. They're software businesses.
Yeah, I would go beyond the sum of, I would say, the biggest businesses. The banks are an online business. Yes, they have their brick and mortar locations, but the business exists in totality online.
I think some of the biggest ones are just truly software businesses. So yeah, that goes deep, that subject and that topic. Something not to be ignored is the internet space. So I went to the Richard Branson event, Inspire and Succeed. I think Success Resources put it on here in Australia, and fantastic event. And this girl jumped on at the start. She's on Shark Tank, which is the Australian version of like Dragon's Den. It's like the equivalent of Dragon's Den. And she's doing something crazy like $50 million a year, just selling like budget women's fashion wear, like dresses, like cocktail dresses and party dresses, and just like nicer clothes. She probably just does some like regular everyday fashion as well, but mostly it's that kind of stuff. And she said that she'd never owned a brick and mortar fashion store in her life. All online. Does the whole thing online. Started it in her mum and dad's garage. Stocked a bit of the stuff. And people say, oh, well, that was brick and mortar. It's like, yeah, but it was a warehouse. She was treating her mum and dad's place like a warehouse. So in all of that, what do I see is numbers. We're just factoring in costs and overheads and numbers. And that's why business is business. I don't care what anybody says. Like, the best people always look at the numbers first. And I learned this through the real estate game. You don't make a deal unless you've done your due diligence, unless you've done the numbers. You make your money when you buy. You don't make your money when you sell. And I think that's the same with a business. You make your money when you decide to open the doors, because you've done the due diligence, you've done the numbers. And for us, just in that scenario, let's just say to open up a brick and mortar barbershop, the numbers didn't make sense. Today, in this current climate, for us, it doesn't mean we couldn't do it. Doesn't mean it couldn't be, great in subjective societal terms. But we just didn't want to do it. Why? Because we also assessed other business models and realized the margins were better elsewhere and more aligned for us.
Yeah. There's lots there.
There's lots there. There's lots of avenues we can go down.
There's lots there. But yeah, I mean, look, you don't have to walk the road of somebody who's done something to take the same lessons as them. That is the human condition. We have evolved as humans to learn lessons from people that have walked the line before us, that we don't have to walk the same line and get the same lessons. You always say it, mistakes are inevitable, but they don't have to be our mistakes. They don't have to be our mistakes.
We can thank Uncle Warren for that one. That's one of Warren Buffett's great lines, and I remember seeing a quote from him a long time ago on that, and it stuck with me. It really stuck with me. You know, you can learn by mistakes, but they don't have to be yours.
Yeah, and that's what the proactive person on the planet. I'm going to take business owner out of it, because every single person who walks this planet is a business owner, and you own your own busyness. And it's just, how busy do you want to be? How busy do you want to be? In what avenue are you going to choose? Because it is your choice at the end of the day. Nobody's holding a gun to your head to own a business in the typical format that businesses are owned. Nobody's holding a gun to your head to do that. So stop acting like a fucking victim, pretending like it is like, oh, I'm just so, like, that fucking small business owner mindset where it's just victimhood is not helpful for anybody. It's not helpful for yourself. It's not helpful for your team. It's not helpful for anyone at large, because nobody's holding a gun to your head to do it. You could easily just be an employee for someone else. You can do a different walk of work. You can spend your busyness doing other things. But every single person, and I've said this in the podcast before, has their own business, whether they're conscious of it or not. Your life is your business. Your life is your busyness. How are you choosing to spend your time on this planet? That is your busyness. And I would prefer to spend my time doing what it is that feels purposeful for me, which is helping other people work out how to spend their busyness better. And that's what we do. And that keeps us busy. And that keeps us busy. We don't have to take on the stress, the risk, all of the other things that come with owning a brick and mortar business. And a lot of it comes down to patterns and conditioning and belief systems, and how people truly understand and believe the way the world works based on what they saw as a child. Like, for the person who only ever saw somebody working hard for money, we just did a skills webinar this morning with Ryan Moresby White, one of my coaches. He said something brilliant at the start about like the relationship that he had with his dad, and like he only ever saw his dad working hard to get money. So then that's what he did. He just replicated behavior. And that's what people have historically done. The majority of people in the hair industry have done that. So then what do? I get good enough at cutting hair, I open a shop. And then they tie the ball and chain to their legs, and they don't have the ability then to look forward anymore, because that's actually not looking forward at new business, it's looking backward at old business. And I don't know about, like I said at the start, I don't know about you, but I haven't yet seen the world go backwards. Now, there's probably some benefit in us going backwards a little bit when it comes to like ethics and morals of human beings and how the world works. But when you understand the world on a psychological level, and you understand the human behavior and psychology, just repeating the same stuff again and again without questioning it is literal insanity.
It's also very audacious. It's audacious to think that we've got it right. To keep things how they were is to assume that you've just got it right, and this is just how it should be. That's audacious as hell. Like, the one piece of proof in the pudding that we've never got it right is, has anything stayed the same? Ever? No. Nothing has. The only thing that's ever stayed the same, and this is what proves your point correct about you own your busyness, your own self, is the only thing that's ever stayed the same is the human condition. Humans are always the same. Like, we live, we die, we eat, we sleep, we reproduce, we breathe air, we drink water. That's always been the same. We have emotions. That's always been the same. But everything we sprinkle on top keeps changing. Why? Because it's not of nature. It's us just going, well, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do to get busy? Now once you understand everything from that lens, it's like, oh, I get to choose all of this. And one of the human needs is change or growth. So it's always going to change. And I've said this on a podcast, I'm going to kick this horse to death. But one of the things in nature at any given time, there is always new opportunity for growth. Always. Nature is at a cellular level is always looking for new opportunities to create and to change and to grow. Always. So at our very biological level, that is always what's going on. So that's kind of how we are. And yeah, to stay stuck. So Gary Vee said a great line that I really resonated with me, and it was speaking more to marketing about, corporate marketing versus social media marketing, or let's just say modern marketing. It's all the same stuff, whether it's corporate, whether it's TV, whether it's social media, it's all same. It's just marketing, right? Human behavior. But he says we fall into this big trap, these like Fortune 500 companies and these companies that got massive money. They fall into the trap of pedestaling the old. So they'll pedestal like old corporate ways of doing things, where they'll put massive budget into making one video or one advert and trying to make it relevant for everybody, instead of working out, right, what are all my pockets of dynamics of people, and then putting smaller budget into each of those little pockets, making the content very relevant to each of those people, which you spend less money on smaller pieces and you leverage all those things in all different ways. So you've gone from one utility to like 50 different pieces of utility, and it was like this 51 will grow a company way faster than this one piece now in this modern day. Now that wasn't always the case. That's my point. We can't pedestal the old because it's not critical thinking, and we're not looking at what works right now. Now that analogy goes right back to what we just said at the start. Does the old way of marketing match up to the new way of marketing? Does the old way of business make up to the new way of business? And what is the only thing in the way there? The only way we're ever going to know is the numbers. And the big one is the margin numbers and the profit numbers. And that's what we looked at. That was what made our decisions. Let's have a look at the classic barbershop model, how everybody else does it. Let's have a look at this model, training, coaching, lifestyle design, what we help people with. Let's look at that. That looks nice. That looks nicer, anyway, than the brick and mortar business. It's as simple as that. And then one day we may look at that and go, nope, we're going to have to change that again.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, I think what's dangerous is to take it, and it goes back to the advice piece, is to take advice from people who are in the thing. Because often when people are in the thing, they can't see what's happening outside of the thing. So like, if I was to listen to everybody who gave me advice on opening a barbershop over the years, if I was to listen to their advice, I wouldn't have been able to see the other opportunities, because the bias of the person that is giving me the advice is in the thing and can't see much further than the blinkers that they have on. So like, there's a lot of lessons we can take from the old with the mindset of the new, like with the filter and the lens of the new on. So we can look at the old and think, brilliant, that's how that worked. Cool. But then it's the critical thinking piece. It's the ability to critically think and be like, I wonder, do I have to do that? Because there's a difference, right? Like between intelligent people and like people who are just like book smart. There's a big difference between like somebody who is like intellectual in a sense, but or somebody who is a genius in terms of like what they can see and how they can take things and be creative with them and come up with better ways to do things. Because even look at cutting hair, right? At a certain point, somebody would have looked at, if we were to worship the old, we'd still be cutting hair with those fucking clippers that you have to squeeze to get the blades to move back and forwards. But somebody realized, you know what, we can do electric clippers. And then someone realized, we can do wired clippers. But all of these companies that are coming out now and making these clippers, at one point didn't exist. They exist based off of the old patterns that they saw, and new ideas combined with old patterns, they create a new business. And they think, there's an opportunity. There's a gap in the market. There's a place where we can help. That's a problem we can solve. It's really not that hard, like when you think about it in its simplest form. But yeah, it's it's a large conversation, and I love it because that's why we do the podcast, right? Like, we didn't know where today's episode was going to go, but it was based on a conversation that we were having around critical thinking and just the ability to be able to look at something and not have to experience the pain of it in order to learn the lesson from it. So, for example, if I wanted to be a pilot, if I wanted to fly planes and I wanted to know everything about flying planes, and I watched somebody crash the plane, I wouldn't do the same things that they did, unless it was like a technical malfunction and I could like figure that out. Now I can't remember who said it, but it was in a coaching thing that I was part of, and it was about the red card thing. It's like when you show monkeys like a red card, so you pull the red card up and you slap the monkey in the face, and the smart one will be able to, it wasn't slapping them in the face, it was the water, wasn't it? It was like spraying them with water. So it was like the monkey, you put like an apple or something, or bananas are monkeys stuff, right? So put a banana at the top of a wall, and every time the monkey goes up to get the banana, spray him with water, like completely soak him, hose him down from the wall. So the second time they go up to get it again, hose down. So then what do? They recognize the pattern, they stop the behavior, and they don't do it. Now nobody knows why, but they just don't do it. So it stops critical thinking in its tracks. Now eventually, through observation, all of the other monkeys that are around and in the room start to see that, oh, if I go for that banana, I'm going to be sprayed down. Now opinions are very similar these days, and advice, because people are afraid to give their opinion. They're afraid to actually take new action based on what people are saying. And another analogy for what people are saying is that spray hose. People just spraying and projecting shit at them, saying, oh, you can't do that, or you can do this, or it's like, no, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like, we all have equal opportunity in this world, like, to create what it is that we want. It's up to us how we spend our time, how we use our busyness. Now, the other monkeys didn't, like, the value in that is the other monkeys didn't have to get sprayed by the water to learn the lesson. And that's kind of the reverse to the whole monkey story. But they didn't have to walk that line to learn that lesson. Like, thankfully enough, you know, like I've witnessed my mother have a business for 35 years. Like, her business was 35 years old when she retired this year. And I looked at it and I said, did my own little calculations and did my own maths and said, nah, not for me. And it is for some people, and there's no judgment around it. Go for it. Do whatever you want. Like, do it brings you joy. But would that bring me joy? Would that serve my purpose? Like, will that help the people that I know I can help? I would prefer to help people who do that lead a better life due to the experiences that I've had, because I've been around and I've spent a lot of time with different barbershop owners and salon owners, and not a lot of them are happy. They might say they are, but they're not really. Like, there's a deeper level of fulfillment that's untouched. Like, they haven't, for lack of a better term, it seems to me as if they're in a trap and they're relying on their distractions to get them through that feeling. And that is my just general outlook. So what do I have to do then? My way of how I use my busyness in the world is to help those people give that thing different meaning. And we start with the skill set, because once that becomes automatic, we can actually work on the other stuff that matters more. So we start there, and now it's evolved into this thing where it's like, okay, let's just have a general overlook and critically think about your entire life and business, and let's see if there's a better way to do this. And then not taking advice from people who are in the old school mindset, because that's not going to solve the new world problems. It's really quite a simple equation.
Oh, it's incredible. I love what you said there. Like, no business model is wrong. Like, there's no judgment on any business model. None of them are wrong. You just get to choose which one you do. And I think, in light of that, if anyone does have good business smarts or is a guru, come at it from that place. Come at it from a place of like empowerment. If you do have the business smarts, cool. Help other people with that then. And try not to pull other people down and judge different business models. Like, oh, you can't do that if you haven't done that, and you can't do that. It's like, it's just a big judgment game. And it's a matter of opinion, because the only thing in business that rings true is the numbers. The numbers never lie. I don't care what anyone says, the numbers never lie. So you got brick and mortar and you've got a lease on a building. Guess what? I'll just plug that into the numbers. I'll go, well, has that shell of a building that you have to house all the cogs of your business, which is your employees and your all this kind of stuff, is that making sense for you in your due diligence? Have you done your numbers? Have you made your money when you open the doors? Like, I think a lot of people get it backwards. They just take on a big lease, they take on this, they take on that, and just pray that it's going to work out for the year. Oh, we got to do so much work, we've got to push and more and more, just to justify the fact that they've taken on all the risk. Now, taking on that much risk can also be a limiting pattern, can also be a trauma pattern, to prove to yourself that you have limits, that you have a limit within your psyche somewhere. You see, I was right. People like us never get ahead. You see, people like us don't have things like that. See, people like us don't do things like that. It's like, okay, but if you critically think and you can put your pride aside and you can put your identity aside, this is the other crazy thing. It's like, you and I think I can speak for both of us, we're happy to change and mold and move and do whatever we need to do with our business to stay up to date and to live the life that we want to. Why? Because we're not attached to it. We're not attached to the identity of it. I got
a great one. I got a great one to add to that. And I spoke to you about this in the last couple of weeks. We've invested in some new coaches ourselves. And since we even started 101, we've changed the model about 3 times. And what it made me realize is that business is a working document. And if we don't treat it like a working document, it's going to be fixed, old, and it's going to be in the archives. And most people's businesses are in the archives. They're not working documents. And the archives don't survive because look at in today's world, why the fuck would somebody continue to do a video rental store for videotapes? Nobody has VCR videotapes. And that, my friends, is where it's going to trend if the business isn't a working document. And if your busyness isn't a working document, so get beyond the business word, but if your own busyness isn't a working document, meaning on a day-to-day basis, when I wake up, do I question anything? Just put a question mark over absolutely everything in your life. Do I question, how do I want to spend my time today? Do I even have that decision? Start there. Do I even have the autonomy over and control over my own life? The answer is always yes. It's just you might not be aware of it yet.
I love that. And we've spoken about that in previous pods as well. And it's in a lot of our coaching content. It's like that whole critical thinking piece. I think regularly, every 6 weeks to every quarter, questioning yourself and your business. Is this still the best thing I could be doing right now? Is this still? See, the tricky thing there is most people are uncomfortable with the responsibility that it takes to be a leader in those scenarios. Like, what if you wake up one day and say, is this still? And something's changed. And then you have to shut your business down.
Change. People don't like change. We've
people don't like change.
This.
Yeah, it's riddled in psychology, right? People are afraid of change because we're, creatures of comfort.
Well, the nervous system, it's actually the nervous system doesn't like change because the nervous system adapts to keep us safe. The number one thing that, the nervous system does, which is egoic mind is created to protect, that is to keep us safe. So once it feels a level of safety, regardless of how that looks on the exterior, it might actually be so disempowering, but it still feels safe to the nervous system. So there's an emotional home attached to it. So then it's the change from the emotional home is where the issue lays.
Because people have found safety in that one way of doing business, that one model. It's going to change now. And like, I even
and
love to read.
they exile anybody who questions it too.
Yes. So anything else that challenges their level of safety is exiled. Yeah, it's beautiful. And there was a great reframe on it, even at a genetic level. You know, if you read The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, you know, he says his words are, we're lazy by design. So at a genetic level, your genes are trying to, it's like the survival of the fittest. They're trying to get the best outcome using the least amount of energy. At a genetic level, your genes do not want to use any more energy than they have to. So he says, he goes, you pull that upstream to how that looks as a human, a fully formed human. It was like, we're lazy by design. But there was another scientist that said, we're actually efficient by design. And I really like that. And so the protection mechanism is a remembering a collection of things that have happened in the past. Remember, they're old. That's another defect of the human condition, is that we get stuck in the past. We get stuck in time. So there are memories of survival from the past that we now use for efficiency, because at a base level, our bodies and our genes do not want to use any more energy than they have to. So it all makes sense. When you realize that makes sense, you realize, wow, that system and model worked for the longest time in a survival environment, in a hunter-gatherer survival scenario. Because why would we need that extra energy? Well, what if we had to run from something? What if we've got to go hunt something tomorrow? We've got to build some shelter. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. Who knows? Look at all these nomadic tribes. They were just walking forever. You needed that extra energy to do the things that kept you alive. But guys, that's not us anymore. Everything is so efficient. Like, we are the product of efficiency. We are the product of ease. And we're living again with an old system, albeit it's a very smart system. But the way that it serves a little bit of awareness, tapping into a little bit of awareness, a little bit of critical thinking, allows you to just crack the surface and go, oh, actually, this doesn't need to be this way. That's how it's just set on autopilot, but I can choose to use it however I want to. I can choose to use my physiology however I want to. And that's pretty exciting. And that, I think if you can get to that level, that will skyrocket your business. And that comes back to critical thinking around business. Is this still the best thing I can be doing? Now, all you got to do is do two things. Wake up and just think about how much gratitude and how much joy you have. Are you waking up joyful? Yes or no? Secondly, just run the numbers. Be like, is it still making sense? And then you've got options then. You either close the thing down, do something different, or pull the levers that make the thing move forwards, not stay the same, because it can't stay the same.
And one of the big defects there is playing too much within the now and not thinking about the later. It's like the ability to have some delayed gratification or to see where this is going to trend to in the future. And that's one thing I'm super proud of, that we've been able to help some of our clients in doing. Like, one of our clients this morning shared during the skills webinar, which is a lesson that we share with them quite regularly, about uncommon practice equals uncommon results. Common practice is going to get you common results. And the unfortunate thing is that most people will tell you that they don't want to have a common life, but then they continue to live that way. You know, the busyness thing is real. And, you know, I would say 99.9% of people, if I asked them the question, if you could receive more from doing less in your life right now, what would the answer be? Would you say yes or no? 99.9% of people would say yes. So then why do they not think that way? Because one of the hardest things in the world for people to do is to think new thoughts and question the current state of their reality based on a concept of self, a self that has been created out of protection.
And it's so funny listening to you say that. Like, us as humans, we're quite literally we value that much, like the harder you work, the more you get. Well, maybe working hard at the wrong thing will maybe get you less, probably. Working smarter and harder that's a good equation to get more. But we're challenging the very way that we are by design. We're efficient by design. We have to remember that. That is why people say, yes, I'd like to get more for doing less. Why? Because we're efficient by design. If we weren't efficient by design and we were a energy burning machine, our natural set point would be like, no, we have to work hard because that's how we're set. It's like, no, we're not. We are efficient by design. We want to get the most reward for the least amount of energy used at a genetic level. Well, we have no control over that. So this is what we need to understand. We've artificially put value on more work equals more reward to our detriment. Now, that might have worked once upon a time. If you were doing the Samaritan's work, if you're doing the Savior's work where you're building shelter for people and you're doing this and you're doing that and it's massive value for in a survival standpoint. Yeah, I can see more hard work will probably get you more reward. But even then, that's still working smart. Even then, that's hard, smart work. You're saving the collective. So yeah, this conundrum that we've got ourselves in modern business is very interesting. And there's the thing is to always remember as well, there's never been more money on the planet than right now. Every day the planet gets more wealthy. And what is it? Something like the top 10% of people, or the top richest 10% of people bracket have more money than the bottom 40, 50, 60% or whatever it is. It's massive. So like there's a bit of a offset in how all this money is allocated, but it doesn't mean it isn't out there. It's out there.
And I've just kind of had a bit of a download there based on the conversation we had this morning and this conversation, but I would go as far as to say, like, don't work harder, don't work smarter, work in alignment to what is right for you. And for most humans, when we are working hard, like when I was in the barbershop and I was working my ass off doing 50, 60, 70 haircuts a week, under the surface, I have the awareness now to be able to go back in time, look at the old and think, there was times where I was like, this can't be it. Like, this doesn't add up. Like, I'm doing this right now, but it's not adding up to where it is that I actually want my life to end up or go to. And then the barbershop idea came in and I was like, did the same calculations. That doesn't add up either to where I want my life to go to. So my alignment, my journey and the journey that I'm here to do, like my purpose isn't in this. So like, we can believe all of the propaganda all we want, because most of that whole like work harder, hard work is get you there, grind. I think Gary Vee has been widely misunderstood when it comes to the work harder thing, because he's talking about it from a sense of work harder on the things that you're in alignment with. That's the piece that's missing. And these people are polarizing by design, like much as like, so are we sometimes, much the same as ourselves. We are polarizing by design with some of our posts and some of the way we say things and do things, because it takes something interrupting a pattern for change to happen, and change needs to happen in order for the world to keep evolving and moving forward. We can't just keep tummy tickling everybody, as Oscar would say. Like, what good is that going to do if we're just tummy tickling and doing the same shit that everyone's doing up to this point, and waiting for the one or two big events per year where everyone gets drunk together with all their online friends? And like, we've done that. We've done it. It's been there, tick the box, got the fucking medal, see you later. Like, and now it's okay. Well, the ability to wake up in alignment every day, and alignment to me is like being able to make my own decisions that are in line with my values, and not having to worry about am I pleasing this person or am I pleasing that person? No. The person that I please before myself is God. I respect and listen to the signs, because this is the thing too. We've been programmed to eliminate the feeling that we have in our bodies. And most people that I speak to know that the things that they're doing aren't feeling good. But the mind takes over and the conditioning and the programming takes over. And they just continue doing what they're doing and never make the changes, because nobody's ever given them the permission to make the changes. And that's essentially what we do. We overview and look at people's lives, but we don't just do it for other people. And I think this is really important for everyone to realize, is we're consistently doing this ourselves in our own lives and in our own business. Like, we got a new coach a couple of months ago. We had a quarterly planning flow. We used to plan every quarter, every 3 months. And then as soon as we joined this coach, they told us that they do 6-week flows with planning. And immediately when I heard it, I was like, that's the new standard. I was like, that's the new standard. Okay, I'm not going to be married to the old idea anymore. I'm not going to be married to the old approach anymore. It's like, this is the new approach. Cool. And I trust the source. It's a source that thinks things through. They're not just stuck in it, because there's plenty of coaching groups that we could have joined that would tell us something else, that would guide us in a different direction, or maybe not even guide us in a different direction, guide us in their direction, their chosen alignment, which isn't probably alignment at all. It's built from fear and safety. So I know that's a lot. I know that's a lot to take in. But don't work. And that's a fucking post, bro. That's a post. This is how we make content, guys. Don't work harder. Don't work smarter. Work in alignment. Ryan said something brilliant this morning on the skills webinar, and it will stick with me. When you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then you'll be successful. And successful looks like, that word is very open to like whatever your interpretation of that is. But to me, successful is waking up every day and having the ability to critically think and bring joy to every moment in my life.
And that, I love that. I couldn't agree more on all of that. And something for people, in business, or thinking about getting in business, or just confused or stuck, or got animosity towards other people doing business. It's like, what we've learned from the coaching world is analyzing other businesses is it's amazing how they're all a little bit different. Like, the one thing that remains the same is the numbers. Like, I can't stress it enough. The numbers do not lie. Are you profitable? Are you not? Do you have a decent profit margin? Do you have a small profit margin? Like, that's all that matters when we're talking about business and a monetary goal, right? Because that's why most people are in business. Like, we go deeper, we go on a leadership level, we go on a heartfelt level, we go on an alignment level. That's not why most people are thinking about business. Like, we know that as soon as we are in business, we are responsible for other people's lives, and that's leadership. That's not why most people go into business. Most people go into business because they want to get rich. So let's just start there. So if you're on a numbers game, it's the numbers don't lie. So, but how you go about that is entirely up to you. Like, you go about that process however you want to. And that's why I think it's crazy to think that, to stay stuck in time, to think that you've got it right, because reality check, everybody does it a little bit differently. We've dealt with loads of barbershops and they all do it a little bit differently. Like, it's amazing. The variance out there is wild. So people to just really keep that one in mind. Like, the one thing that is consistent is the numbers. The numbers don't lie. But the model changes as much as you want it to change. And that's where it's like, cool, if your model requires a ton of hard work, busting your balls, just doing cheap haircuts, hundreds of cheap haircuts a week, but that brings you loads of joy and alignment, fantastic. Just keep doing it. But the moment you complain or try and put someone else out of place, signals to me that you don't have that much joy. Because if you did have that much joy, you wouldn't be worried about what everybody else is doing, because you'd think you've already worked it out. You'd be like, well, I have so much joy doing what I'm doing. I don't care what anybody else does. And that is the proof in the pudding there, is like, if you're happy as hell, fantastic. But the fact that you might complain about a different business model kind of shows that you're not happy as hell. And that's where the deeper inquiry goes. That's where the deep work goes into thinking about what on earth you're doing with your business. And is it an old model? Is it a new model? And yeah, there's so much to be had in that space of just really thinking about what actually brings you joy in business. Because just sticking out an old model just because, why not? I couldn't agree more. Yeah, we say it all the time in our classes, right? In our 3-day course and creative mastery, anything that we do, it's like, just be careful about falling into like the dogmatic thinking or dogmatic behavior. Just because you see short, sharp skin fades lined up, this, that, whatever online, it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. It's just one way to do it. It's an and world, non-or world. It's not this or that, it's this and that. Like, I wouldn't want that. I see people doing long haircuts on people, like my haircut's pretty long, and then they go and taper them and shape them up and put a square hairline in them. I'm like, why are you doing that to that person? But that's just my own opinion. I wouldn't want that. But the way that the barbering world's going, they would put me in the chair, square layer me everywhere, and then go and shape up my hairline or taper out my sides. And I would say, why'd you do that? You know, I'd love to try this one day. Why'd you do that? They'd be like, oh, it's just because what you do, isn't it? It's because what so-and-so does online. Oh, okay. It's an and word, not an or word. It's not this or that. It's this and that. And, you know, something that I think one of our compasses as well is, you know, I don't ever claim to know what's true, and we never do. All we know is what feels good. And we go by feeling a lot, and the way that I work and the way that we work feels pretty good. And to your point about asking barbers, are they happy? Are they joyous? A lot of them aren't. They're not overwhelmed, overjoyed, with what they're doing. And that's the filter for me. It's like, okay, if you really went into your feeling and you were just like overjoyed, there's nothing to complain about. Like, it's just happy. But the fact that most people aren't shows that the old model isn't working to your favor. Now, maybe there's a perspective shift that needs to happen. Some people are doing quite well and they just don't have the gratitude to realize that they're doing well. They just want more and more and more for the sake of having more. And that's a self-worth issue. That's something else that's tied up in a pattern or a trauma pattern. But I love your point, like everything can coexist. Work out your model. I think that's one of the unique things that we do in A&P is we help people realize their model. And the model is unique to your business. It doesn't have to be like so-and-so's business or like Menswear does it or like this person does it, or like, it doesn't have to be the same model. Now, you could be inspired by their model. You can use elements of their model, but it's uniquely up to you and how that's going to work in your business. And I love that. And I think that's where there's a bit of friction right now in the barbering world with all this freelance work coming in. There's people stuck in the employee world. In the essence of that, I think they can coexist. I think it's an and world. It's just working out how is it going to happen. And that requires the numbers, and that requires the feeling. It's got to feel right and it's got to look good.
Yeah, it's personal development 101 by saying this, but it's fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And I feel like a lot of people's bitterness in business comes from their fixed mindset of other people's standards on their lives. So what I mean by that is like most people make their business decisions based on the old and not looking at the new and questioning things and thinking, is this still the best way to do it? Is this how I want to do it? Because that's a big part of it as well. Because just because somebody else has done it in a certain way, it doesn't mean that you have to do it in a certain way. Just because barbering's been a certain way up to a certain point doesn't mean it can't be something new. It can't change its meaning. It can't change its format. And generally speaking, right, like we've met a lot of barbers over the years. On the surface and on Instagram, which I would say is the surface, everyone claims to love what it is that they do, but it's not until we spend 3 days with people and we really get to the depths of what's going on that they might come to the realization that, oh wow, I've been giving it this meaning and I've been giving it this thing and I don't really love what I'm doing, but it's better that if I pretend that I do. And like I said in an email a couple of weeks ago, during one of my epiphanies, it's like most people lie. And if you think it's bad that they lie to you, it's even worse that they're lying to themselves. And that's the surest way to remain in the exact same place as you are right now, without growth, without a discovery of some new joy, is to not question things. And I put out an email this morning actually around like most barbers have this problem, and the problem is barber block. And the way I defined the barber block in this email was knowing that there's more to know and choosing not to know it. And just remaining the same. Whoa, big lizard at the window. Like big one. The joys of being in Bali, huh? But yeah, I mean,
yeah. And look, to your point of like how things can change its format and utility, it can. And I've seen it happen.
And just to back that up quickly, there's nothing wrong with not knowing something. And that's what I said in the email. It's like not knowing something is the point. We don't know. We do know. At one point we didn't know how to walk, and now we know how to walk.
That's life. Progress.
Like, we don't know, we do know. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. The only thing wrong with not knowing is not knowing and choosing to remain not knowing. So just to back that up a little bit further.
And it's great. And like, just want to add to your point is like, the format can change, and it has changed, guys. I was around before this whole skin fade thing, Edgar fanatics came in. Now, that's not dissing any haircuts or anything, but it's like I saw it change. I was cutting hair for quite a while before this whole modern barbering thing happened, right? And I saw it with my own eyes. Those who didn't adapt got left behind. Those who were like the best men's hairdressers who didn't adapt, they just got left behind. And this whole new breed came through. Now, I think we're on the precipice of that right now as well. And my advice is to be as adaptable as you possibly can be, because I've seen it not work out very well for a lot of people. Now, the tricky thing is, it's like finance, it's like business, it's like all of these things. Most people haven't been through enough seasons of change to realize this and realize that they have to adapt, and staying in the old isn't always a good idea. We can look to the old for patterns and changes and things that could have happened, but it doesn't always pay to stay where you are. And I've seen it happen, and it has changed, and it will change. Everything changes. It always will. Now, I just think this new modern wave of barbering isn't old enough yet for people to get burned by a change. So, what's modern barbering? What, 10 years old, let's say? 10, 11 years old. That's it. It's going to change. And I think it is changing now. So, there are going to be people that are going to get burnt by this, much like they got burnt previously. We went from 3 back and sides with a number 1 being short, to all of a sudden people going down to skin and getting all these different haircuts. People got burnt. They were like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. Okay.
Can you imagine the barbers, the old school barbers back then saying, oh, all these people doing this, these skin fades and this and that, idiots. They've never done this and they've never done that. And, that's not going to solve anything. The earlier you actually adapt to these things, the more result you're going to get. Menspire is a perfect example of it. The most recognized men's brand in the world. Even here in Bali, when I get my haircut, people know about them, and there's something to learn there.
Because they caught a wave. They caught the wave at the right time and moved with the new. And that's it. Someone else is going to do it as well. It's like everybody's done it in hairdressing. Vidas Sassoon did it. Tony and Guy did it. All these brands, they've all done it. It's catching the wave. So we can't really stay, where we were. And we're even seeing that right now. I love Sassoon work. I love that geometric precision. I love it. But it's being challenged right now. The kids don't want to know. And we've had insider conversations with different people who are close to those people. And they're like, yeah, they're really struggling to get it to stick with the youngsters because they don't want it. Well, because it's just a shift and a change, and it will come back again one day. But to grasp to such an old thing, thinking that it's right or true, not always a good idea. Learn it, have it all. And this is why I say, for any hairdressers or barbers out there, or anyone, business, whatever the hell you do, I don't care what it is, learn as much as you can so you are ready. So you're ready for the change, because it will change at some point. When? I don't know. If I had a crystal ball, I'd love to have a crystal ball, because then I'd catch every change. But it will change. Just learn as much as you can. Don't just be the one trick pony. Don't be the guy that just does the skin fades or just does the lines or just does this, because it will change. Will change. But then it comes into a path of question of integrity or of alignment. Is that even what you want to do? If you're just hardcore skin fade dude, and that's all you want because you just love that, and it changes all of a sudden, you got a critical think.
Just keep doing the skin fades.
You can keep doing them, and that's fine, but you might have diminishing growth, or you might just stay where you are, and you just got to accept that because it's alignment and that's what you love. Or if it drops off a cliff and people just don't want it anymore, diversify your time. Only do it for a little amount of time and then do something else. Or you got to critically think, cut the whole thing off and do something completely different.
And that's why it's important. It's important not to be guided by the old, but guided by the new for you. And that's an added piece to kind of add to that. It's what is the new for you, meaning how do I want to spend my time? Because if we're constantly guided by the changes of the industry, then there's no integrity there. We're just guided and blown around with the wind. Now people want long hair, let me do long hair. Oh, people like this kind of content, let me do this type of content. It's like, no. Like, that's the surest way to lose yourself. Like, like the surest way to like lose touch with like, who even am I? And that will result in some form of crisis at some point. Big, small, medium, I don't know. But like,
and unless it's coming from the heart, you really understand why you're doing the things you're doing. See, I look at people's content and I think I might try that for feedback. I'll look at the metrics. I'm not making it mean anything about me. I look at those things, right, what's the strategy? Maybe I could use that. I'll look at the metrics. Could that be a way for me to get my message out to the world easier? It's not because I want to be like that person or have what they have. I don't care. Like, no, because again, most people aren't that happy. And they're not that joyous. And the most joyous people that I know don't even do this shit anyway. So, honestly, the most joyous people, they're just like, I'm just happy. How I am, who I am.
Yeah. So yeah, the kind of, key takeaways there is the ability to continually critically think from a place of, how am I spending my time? Like, how am I controlling my busyness? Are you controlling your busyness, or is somebody else controlling your busyness? And the somebody else doesn't have to be an employer. The somebody else could be other people that are in your life. It could be somebody you don't even know. Like, can you imagine the amount of people who are driven by Josh LaMonica? Like, who just do things based on what he does? Like, when it comes to their business and not understanding the intent behind it. Because I can imagine Josh is in his own lane when it comes to like what he does and what he wants to do. And you know what? It would be great. Like, maybe when we go back to London in 2024, we'll try and get Josh on the podcast, because it would be good to have a chat with him. But I can imagine he's not looking at too many people and being driven by their things, because his success hasn't come from that. His success comes from his own alignment with whatever is best for him. And that's up to him. Now, it's very rare, if ever, that I see Josh actually in a bitter state or projecting about other educators and what they're doing. Never see it. So shout out to him for that, because that's pretty cool. And this whole podcast, right, like it's called Unlimited, because our mission and our message with this is to remove the limits that are placed on ourselves. And this is a limit. Like, operating in the old actually is limited. Because what's unlimited, anything that's new is unlimited, like, because we don't know what exists. Like, if at a certain point we just stop asking what if, then we're screwed. Like, if you're not waking up, I'm sure most barbers listening to this would have woken up at one point and not wanted to go to work, not wanted to do 15 clients a day. There's been days, multiple months of my life where I probably added up over time that I didn't want to do those clients that day. And if it wasn't for the question, what if? I remember one time during COVID, and I've always been like this, right? Like, I've been like this in school. Like, I used to question things like algebra. Like, I got to a certain point of understanding it, and I was like, I'm not going any further with this. Like, I'm not taking up valuable energy and space in my mind with this, because I know that I'm never going to use it. Like, I used to ask the question in school of, where is this going to be relevant in my life? With where I want to go, where does this fit in? Like, but I gave it the exploratory stage. Like, I still explored it to a point where it's like, does this really work out? And with certain subjects, I did apply myself, like English, because I knew, okay, well, if I can communicate, then great. And I got good results in English, always have. So it's always just asking the question of what if, and where does this fit into how I want to live? And is there a better way? And I remember during COVID, I looked across the room at Hannah at one point, and it was coming to the time of us like going back to the barbershop. And I just looked across the room and I said, what if I don't go back? Like, and then that's starting the creativity process. So again, there's different forms of creativity, right? Like, we can have a whole podcast on that too. But that starts a creativity process, or a creative process. Even me getting my visa in Australia, that was a big question of what if, because nobody had ever done that before. Nobody in our space has ever got that visa before, ever. So, and I would imagine it's going to be a long time again before somebody does. Maybe never, actually. Never say never, but right now I'm not looking at anybody that is thinking that way. It's thinking, well, what if I try this route? And then what is it that I have to do in order to do that? Same thing with business. It's like my success in the barber world does not depend on me owning a barbershop or not. That to me is like the lowest hanging fruit. Like I could have a barbershop tomorrow morning. The amount of times that I've been offered barbershops and opportunities to have barbershops, and I trusted my intuition, my inner teaching, my break the word up, intuition, tuition, teaching, knowing, knowledge. I listened to it and it said, no, don't do it. So don't judge me for it.
I love it. And like to that, getting stuck in the old and the new, it's not to say that the new is always going to be right as well. And that comes, and someone would argue, well, not knowing and taking on the new is risk. Okay, yep, but there's risk in staying in the old as well, equally. So choose your risk. And as Stephen Bartlett like greatly says, I'd rather be certain about taking the risk and the lesson and moving forward with joy than the certain misery of staying exactly where I am. You got to choose which one. And I'd rather learn the lesson on the proactive phase rather than when it's too late, because I stayed in the old. I'd much rather go, you know what, I'm going to take this little bit of risk now, calculated little bit of risk, because this is the thing, if we can't be like completely risk averse, because there's risk on both ends. There's risk of staying the same, and there's a risk of change. So which one do you want to choose? No one knows what's true. This is the thing. We've got to settle this whole thing with like, nobody actually knows what's true. All we know is what feels good. And you choose, up to you. Whatever feels good, just follow that. But we can't really then complain about what results we get. If it just feels better to you to stay where you are, do that. But you can't complain about the results. If it feels better to go ahead and take some risks, do that. But you also can't complain about the results you get because you chose to do that.
Yeah. I think the only thing that exists in truth, and based on the last podcast, is the greatest good of all. Like, the only thing that is true is like, what is the greatest good of all? Like, what was God's message? To create a kingdom on earth where it was free of fear and based in love. So what's the best thing for everybody? And multiple things can coexist. I think that's where things have got a little bit skewed when it comes to like personal biases. And this is where the world of Instagram is like a minefield, because people go into it with their sunglasses on, and their sunglasses contain all of their limitations and their understanding of how the world works and their bias based on their experience of life. And then they step on mines without curiosity, because when we can look beyond the lens and see that, oh wow, there's actually a world out there where people are doing different things. And like, I'm so fortunate and grateful that over the last 3-4 years since we started our journey in business, we've always been busy. We've always been working on our busyness. But in business, in the last 3-4 years, I'm so glad that I've been in environments such as K2 Elite, which is a great one, whereas it's so expansive. It expanded my worldview. Like, because this is the thing, things are either expansive or they're contractive. And right now, to keep taking advice from people in the same line and walk of life is very contractive advice to me. Like, if I'm taking all my advice from people who own X amount of barbershops and this and that, bias, and our clients can see it. There's people out there, giving advice online about certain business models and this and that when it comes to hair. It's like nothing's right or wrong. It's what's right for the person, the individual, and how they want to design their life. That's the thing that's right. And there might be a wrong for them based on how it is that they want to live their life. Versus the opposite is expansive. Now, I've been in K2 Elite, there's I don't know how many different types of businesses and different types of models and different ways of operating, but there's one common theme. All business is the same. We're dealing with human beings. It is what it is. So, yeah, I just don't take advice or inspiration. I don't take advice or inspiration from people in our industry who don't have a mindset that is open to something new. And in 2024, I'm going to avoid those people at all costs. When it comes to even having conversations, no conversations. I don't see them online anyway. I mute everybody and I just don't want to see it. But ultimately, I've seen it over the years, and there's bitterness. There's a bitterness that comes with certain things, and it's not doing anybody any favors, especially the person who's projecting the bitterness, because it's a sure way to remain miserable. It's not helping. It's shadow work. The reason you can see it is because it exists within you. Like, you wouldn't be able to see it otherwise. It's shadow work. Google shadow work and just start there.
All the energy, it starts with judgment energy. All judgment starts with judgment of self. Like, it's exactly like you said, you can see it because it exists within you. You can judge because you judge yourself, and that will free you massively if you can get through that. But one thing I'll add is the amazing thing about these coaching spaces is, like, especially when you get into the business realm of coaching spaces, like, I can't say this enough. Business is business, and the numbers don't lie. Business is the same across the board. Now, the little pieces and the cogs inside might move and change, from business to business, but the numbers don't lie. And when you go to K2 Elite, it's not, are you just this business? We can't take you because you're that business. It's all different business, all different walks of life, because they know that it's the same across the board. One of our other coaches, Gavin, the profit analyst, we got all sorts of businesses in there. It's not just like one thing. He doesn't just work with, he's like, oh no, my form of business calculations only work with these businesses. No, they work with everybody. Because what is business? You are directly selling products or services to humans. They then give you money, which puts numbers in the bank. Those numbers just don't lie.
And those numbers are for what? To support your life. So this is the thing. Business is just there to support life. How we're staying busy to support ourselves, to live, and to live through, if you're doing it well, is to live through purpose. And my perspective, and I really want to just kind of frame this in a nice way, because this is just an observational conversation. I actually feel very little judgment energy in it. It's just like, guys, this is still steeped in help, and it's like life gets better when you look at it from this lens. And we're all God's children, we're all family at the end of the day, and I just want what's best for the overall good of everybody. And but yeah, that's where I come at it from. And I just wanted to double down on that, because I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, I have, my own kind of frameworks on that as well. It's like, I'll go back to the piece, I don't know what's true, but I know what feels good. I just know what feels good. So great tangible thing for anybody listening to this pod. Go away and really, after you finish this, and just take a moment to list out what are all the things that feel good. Does more judgment feel good? There's not many people that say, only psychopaths say more judgment feels good. Does more tearing other people's business down feel good? No, not really. Does helping people feel good? Hell yeah. Does having autonomy of my decisions feel good? Hell yeah. So you see where I start to put the fork in the road there and start to to build out that way. And something that I love what Gary Vee says, he goes, I'm so focused on building the biggest business in town, not by tearing everybody else's business down around me, but actually building the biggest business in town. Brilliant. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. If you're that good and you're the business guru, build the biggest business in town then. Build the biggest building in town. Don't worry about tearing everyone else's down. It's an and world, not an or world. I don't know what's true. I'll say it again for the kids at the back, just in case you're not listening. I don't know what's true, but all I know is what feels good. And what feels good to one feels good to many when you're dealing with the human realm. Love, happiness, expansiveness, joy, non-judgment, that all feels great. Helping the greater good, helping the group, helping the community, that feels good. There's not many people that say that doesn't feel good. So that's my guiding light. And that's what this is steeped in. These conversations, these podcasts are steeped in that. I know sometimes I'll speak for myself. We can get a little bit serious and a little bit straight to the point, but like, that's my passion coming through it. That's the articulation of the passion. I feel so greatly about this because it's really worked for me to help me feel good about the things that are happening in my life and our lives and our business.
Yeah, but sometimes it takes that to break the pattern as well. Like, I think somebody else who's widely misunderstood is Andrew Tate. I think behind it all, his intent is actually good. Like, he's trying to create some change and bring awareness to people to take some action to create some change. And people who have the ability to critically think will look at that and see it that way. It's like, again, both things can coexist. You don't have to agree with absolutely every opinion that he has, but you can have a look at the overall and think, yeah, most of the things that he says make sense. And that's how I look at it. I just don't make it mean anything about me. I'm not in a certain cohort of people because of that belief. So yeah, I think definitely, I'm far from perfect, and over the years we've definitely been on a journey ourselves, and I speaking for myself, there's probably podcasts that I can look back on from our previous podcasts, and even ones that I've looked back on before, and yeah, my words don't always articulate my intent, or my words might have come out in a projecty kind of way in the past, and I'm human, we make these, I wouldn't even say mistakes, but it's just part of our evolution. It's just what it takes for us to get the lesson at times. And a real kind of life of richness and fullness and wealth in those terms, it isn't in alignment with bitterness. Like, it just doesn't serve anybody. Because I go back to the whole building the biggest business in town thing. Again, I think Gary is again a widely misunderstood person who doesn't give away all of what he means in these things, and that's designed to create polarity. Because if you really got to the depths of it with Gary, he'd probably say build the biggest business for me and maximize my potential, and as a natural byproduct that will become the biggest business in town. It's not about the other people, it's not about beating somebody else. And then there's the question of this is like, okay, well, you could build the biggest business in town, but if you're forgetting to put it through the filter of, is this how I want to live my life? And will I get to wake up in the morning and do what it is I want to do and have joy, regardless of the things that I have in my life, the liabilities that you see as assets, regardless of those types of things? Does it bring you contentment, joy, fulfillment, and is it in alignment with what you're here to do? And yeah, I just love helping people discover, like being able to look at the overall and discover what it is that is meant for them. Give the thing that we do a different meaning, because up to now, the meaning that has been created is the meaning that everybody else has given it for us. And I clocked that a good few years back, and I had to stop myself in my tracks. It was actually being in an expansive environment such as Curwin Race Space, getting coached, where I realised, oh shit, nothing that I've done up to this point has been really my decision, and I don't like where this is trending. So yes, it might question my reality, but it's better to question my reality than for me to continually to question it myself, or feel it but not know what that feeling is. I think that there's no shame in change. Like, this is the other side of it. It's like, there's no shame in changing things. Like, I think people are like stuck to like the idea of, this is who I am and this is how people are going to perceive me if I change something or do something different. Tomorrow, I could, like, if something better comes along tomorrow, like, Leigh and I could walk away from this and be like, you know what, this feels better now. And there's no shame in change. Don't look at it as change, look at it as improvement.
I see that as a spin-off from the school system. I feel like, you know, we're all asked that question when we're going to leave school. So what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And it's just like you've been trained, you've been primed for the last 10 years of school to just be and do this one thing. And it's riddled out throughout our whole society and culture. It's like here in Australia, you get long service leave. The longer you are at one place, the more you're rewarded. Now that's cool. That is training some positive behaviors, some work ethic and some loyalty. Yeah, fantastic. But I think where a lot of this stuff is, you just do this one track mind, and it trains judgment on change. The reason this resonates with me is because I've struggled with this massively throughout my life. If I learned this earlier, I don't even know if I'd be in the hair industry as long as I was, or as long as I have been. I think I might have quit earlier. I think it comes from the school system, lining you up for that one track. You do this one thing, and it's shameful to change. And because I was never told that it was okay to change, I just thought I have to do this one thing and get really good at it regardless, at all costs, because that's the true measure of value and how successful you are. And yeah, there were years of my career where I was on the same track to follow everything we're talking about. Do the thing, you get all right at it, you get a shot by this age, blah, 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 blah. Who knows where I would have been by now, but
same, yeah. You know, and I've explored it, and the absolute irony of it all is that we're all needed in different ways. Like, and this is where the bias thing becomes a little bit destructive rather than constructive, because to approach the world from a place of our bias, what if everyone was doing the same thing as us? The world wouldn't function. We need everybody in all walks of life to do all the different things. So, like, in saying that, guys, whoever's listening to this, just, you don't have to do what we're doing. You don't have to do what anybody else is doing. You have to do what it is best for, what's best for you, for your life, for your family, for your lineage, for your future generations, whatever it is your goal is. Just do what feels best for you, and just let everybody else do what feels best for them. And, like, you know, if we didn't have people who did the rubbish, if we didn't have people who built the buildings, if we didn't have people who were self-employed, if we didn't have people who were hairdressers, and we only operated as a barbershop with one specific model and everyone did the same thing, it wouldn't work, would it? Like, everything can coexist. Just let people do what people do. And this is just a conversation around open-mindedness. I think the most important thing to take away from today is just the conversation around old thinking versus new thinking. Old thinking is me having my thoughts 30 seconds ago versus my thoughts right now. Like, old thinking is me thinking and talking about the last fucking sentence that I just said. New thinking is the future, what's coming next. And I don't identify with what was anymore. I identify with what is. It's not who I was, it's who I am right now. It doesn't matter what I've done up to now. Like, nothing exists only now. And I know that's to go real deep and spiritual with it, but nothing really exists. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Yes, we can predict trends. We can look at it, all of it as an algorithm for like what might potentially work. But the variables, what if tomorrow everything just flipped on its head and said, nobody said, getting haircuts is bad for you. It's really bad for you. It's going to make you ill and it's going to make you die. What then? Are you going to be still stuck on the model of giving people haircuts? Because it's these things that are worth questioning.
Well, this is why I've brought this up. We've spoken about this years ago, and this is why I'm so big on people learning everything that they can and being open to everything that they can, is because what if that drastic change does come? What if being tomorrow, what if there was this massive, somebody's been planning this huge marketing craze, right? And all of a sudden it became cool to be a monk. And everybody just shaves their hair off to a number 2 all over, and it just doesn't matter anymore. What if that happens? Now, that's out there, but crazier things have probably happened. Or, take this one for example. I love that you brought up that haircutting is bad for you, because there are a lot of bad things about it. But in the yogic tradition, and in, I think is it the Sikhs, they don't cut their hair, ever. They have the really long hair, wrapped up in their turbans is all their hair. Why? 2 reasons. One, they think their wisdom is caught up in their hair. Secondly, they believe it's an extension of their nervous system that collects energy. So here we are, and this is where I always throw in this debate, and this isn't judgment on anybody, this is just observation. Who's happier? Monks, Sikhs, or Western world? Here we are cutting all our hair off. Here they are not cutting their hair at all.
Or cutting it all off, like the monks, not having
the
it
monks,
as a distraction.
The monks cut it all off, but they that's not a distraction, so they've gone and given it different meaning, but they're happy as hell.
Yeah.
But you think about the classic, the true yogi, the true yogis meditating, happy, following their heart, doing the things they enjoy, looking after their body. They're just calm, peaceful, joyous, healthy for the most part.
But they don't worship themselves. That's the thing. They don't worship themselves. They worship something bigger and higher. And you could look at God as everything. So like the greatest good of all is operating through God. Like if you're doing things with the greatest good of all in mind, that is operating through God. And like the opposite is operating through the self, thinking that we're God.
And how mad is it? Like God gave you this hair and we just keep cutting it off. Now, the argument would be to that, but it keeps growing back. It's like, yeah, because it has to, because if you keep letting it go, it eventually stops growing.
But the meaning we've given it is actually evil. And I know it's bringing it back to to God and the conversation of the last podcast. But like, there's this thing that I listened to. It was a podcast with George Janko and Andrew Tate, and it's a wonderful podcast. I'd go and listen to it if anyone has some time. But there's one part where George speaks to, like, why do most men get their hair cut these days? It's the peacock. It's to look good so that they can attract a partner, so that they can get something from a partner. And a lot of, fuck boys get their hair cut and they're doing it to just go out and get with girls. And it is, so it's not done from a place of like intent where it's pure. So what God will do on an energetic level is present you with all of the girls and the people that aren't aligned to your life, because what he's really doing is holding say the one for you, like the most beautiful soul and girl and partner that is for you. What God is doing is holding his daughter, protective daughter, behind his back until you prove and show that you're ready to have her come true, because then the intent is pure, right? So it's just so interesting to like, I know that's taken a different spin on it, but like it's beautiful. I think that gives it a very tangible human analogy, whereas like I like to think, I love the stories of the Bible and I love all those stories, but I resonate with the energy a lot as well. And like, it's an energetic thing, you are what you put out. It's like, if you're putting out fuckboy energy and caring about the millimeters and I'm just doing this to get the thing, guess what? That's what you're going to attract.
You're going to attract the people that like and want the same shit. And then you're going to realize, why is this not working out? Or you're both polarizing each other. You might attract for a moment, but then once you touch, boom, it's gonna keep doing this, because you're both worried about looking good. And it's not, I'm just going to look good to get the one person and then I'm going to settle. It's to look good constantly. So lots of people just take notice of me, because if it was about just one person taking notice of you, you just do it once and you'd be fine. You do it once, got their attention, cool, lovely, it worked. But it's not that. It's not that.
God is always paying attention, God is always paying attention, and he's paying attention to who we are always. And when we're ready for the person that's going to come into our lives, because what do we want out of a partner? We want a partner that doesn't judge us. We want a partner that there's an absence of judgment, regardless of how we look. So if we attract them based on the looks, then that's the standard to uphold. They don't fall in love with us for the reasons that we want them to fall in love with us for. So it's actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I love that you bring this up. I had this at Christmas. At Christmas, like, you go to the shop and it's just filled with all these people that you've just never seen before. Like, I go to the same shop most of the time to get my groceries, and like Christmas time, for some reason, it just brings out all these like new people, whether there's new people in town or whether there's people just going to the shops that don't normally because they're off work. And I was looking around, and like, again, not out of judgment, just out of observation, quite an observational dude. And I was like, wow, everybody here has got something done. The hair, and for the most part, it was the hair, it was like the lips, it was caked in makeup, it was this. I was like, where are just the naturally beautiful women? Where are they? Like, I don't see them, really, anywhere. Like, that's not to say people, and there's a fine distinction, that's not to say people aren't beautiful naturally. It's just, where are they? People don't let their natural beauty come through anymore. Like, I don't know where they are. Like, you walk down in a shop and everybody's got something done to manipulate the way they look to appease the opinion of someone else, and for the someone else that they oftentimes don't care about.
You could tie that back all the way to old versus new thinking, because they think based on patterns that that's what's going to get the results, whereas in fact it's actually new thinking, because there is a cohort of men out there, the ones that you really want to attract, who are looking for the natural beauty. So what is it going to require? New results, new behaviour. New behaviour equals new results. But it's not even about the exterior, it's the interior. It's like, honestly, like, Hannah came into my life when I surrendered. I just said, that's enough now. I'm not going to look for it anymore. Like, I'm just going to work on myself. And that was around the time where I was really starting to like get sick of like the drinking culture, and like I wasn't going out as much, got rid of all the dating apps. Essentially, you could look at it in a spiritual way and say, I showed God that I was ready to move into something a little bit more serious. And then that's when I was presented with it. A little bit. No, I was still drinking and partying and going out and doing what I needed to do. But, Hannah and I, we've had our ups and downs, but we have, we are a soul connection, and we were brought into each other's lives, I believe, to help ourselves move through the shit that we had to move through. And we only do that when we have the ability to let go of what was and step into what is. And that's the whole conversation today. It's letting go of what was, and like, let's just step into what is and what could be, and like, let's live from there rather than live from, because it's a waste of life. To me, honestly, I look at it as a waste of life. This to keep going, repeating the same thing is just like so boring. Like, I wake up every day now and I think, this is so exciting. Like, I'm almost so excited it overwhelms me and stresses me a little bit. Like, I'm still dealing with that, because I'm like, well, what do I even do right now? Because there's so much I could do, and it's like, where do I go first with things? And it feels good, generally speaking, it feels great. So, I mean, why would I not want to do more of that? Whereas hair did feel like that for me for a while. Like, I was on a mission. I was wanting to get good, and I got good, and then I started teaching people, and then that felt better than serving people through haircuts, because then I started attaching a different meaning to the haircuts based on the types of clients I was attracting. Now, if I was to go back and cut people's hair, it would be a completely different thing, because I'd be bringing people into my world that were more aligned. Now, that's a conversation for another day, but I'm constantly looking for what feels good, what feels better, what feels different. How can I make improvements? It's not just getting to a point and being like, all right, that's it, you know? Because I could have done that. I could have followed the journey that everyone wanted me to follow. Have a barbershop. Aha, right, that's it. That's my identity. I'm going to stay miserable, or I'm going to stay stuck, or I'm going to stay exactly where it is that people want me to be based on their ideologies of what the world is and how it works. Yeah, it's just, to me, mind-boggling, mind-blowing. Mad. So, but if you don't know that that's happening, then it's okay. Like, but if this has been the conversation, and the reason why we have these conversations is to bring people to that door of new awareness, to have a look at maybe where there was some limits, and now you can look at them and say, well, how do I become unlimited? How do I remove the limits from myself? Because we don't know what's possible. Nobody knows what's possible in this world. At one point, none of what exists right now happened. Zoom didn't exist at one stage, and here we are having a conversation on Zoom. You know, aeroplanes didn't exist at one point, and here I am from Ireland, sitting in bloody Bali, doing a podcast with Leigh, who's from the UK, in Australia. Like, if you told people at one point in time, if you told people that was a possible thing, they would have been like, nah, you're fucking joking. So how would it serve those people in today's modern world to keep that mindset up? Like, are you going to listen to your granddad? No offense to anyone who has granddads or grandmothers, but like, loved them, right? Like, loved my grandparents. But I wouldn't listen to them for modern day business advice. You know, so like, to me right now, there is certain barbers and certain barbershop owners and salon owners who are operating with fucking granddad mindset or grandmother mindset of like, this is how it is and this is how it should be, and for you to say that it isn't, this isn't right. It's like, no, it all can coexist. You keep doing your thing, we'll keep testing and measuring for your greater good, because that's ultimately what it is. It's okay. If you don't want to try it, we'll try it and we'll let you know how it's going. Like, at what point in time is the intent like questioned in terms of like, these guys are trying to do something bad? You know, because like, look, let's be real. Like, we've had it already. We've experienced it, and we're going to experience it. And Jesus experienced it. Jesus was hated. So in order to do anything good and spread a message, there's going to be polarizing opinions, and that's just part of the game. But in what world is us trying things out and reporting on it to help other people a bad thing? I just don't understand. So I'm literally lost with that one. Lost. I'll take the risk for you. I'll have the conversations for you. I'll spread the fucking word for you, like, if it's something you're scared to do. But the bitterness comes from a denial of reality, and the bitterness comes from a denial of not just reality, but a feeling that they don't want to address, because something's not right, something doesn't feel 100%, and it's easier to point at somebody else and point at something else than address it ourselves. And the earlier you get past that, the more joy and happiness you're going to have in your life.
Couldn't agree more. And like, that's it. You know, what we've done over the last 100 years is just conditioned us to now. You know, we are only the best versions of our limited selves, and I think we are a lot more limited than we like to believe.
100%. I work through my limits every single day. I work on my limits every single day. It's not like, this is the thing, I will never claim to be a guru. I am who I am all of the time, with the greatest good of all in mind. And that's what I wrote down during the thing this morning, and that's how I genuinely feel. And like, if we can live that way, life, and how we spend our time being busy, how we spend our time being busy might feel a bit better, because it's better to be busy doing things that you love than to be busy doing things that you don't. Simple.
Simples.
Well, that was quite a episode, considering we didn't have a topic before starting, wasn't it? I could keep going with that stuff all day. It's just, I'm so passionate about it because I know what life was like for me before, and I know what life is like for me now. And the passion can come out, and, you know, things that I still have to work on can come out at times of, there might be hints of judgment in there somewhere. But, you know, I'm not Jesus, I'm not God. I'm working on it. So, yeah. If you enjoyed this episode, guys, please give it a like, please give it a subscribe. Help us spread the word, spread the message. You know, your opinions are always valid. We always take on board people's perspectives and opinions and ask questions around it. So I would love to start a conversation with anybody around this stuff. And yeah, if you do anything in 2024, it's just start asking yourself what if more often. You know, wake up one day and just say, what if I don't go to work today? Or wake up one day and say, what if I do make content today and put it out? You know, like, what if I just keep asking yourself, what if? And see what happens.